Every club. Every day. The Global Sports Podcast Network.
Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to a very special episode. Might be covering this slightly early, but today's episode is one player that each club from the Premier League should sign. For the purposes of visiting in this next season, I have not included Southampton, Ipswich, and Leicester, as all three are into the championship and will no longer be Premier League clubs. Instead, we will be including Burnley and Leeds. Um, as of recording this on May 12th, we still don't know who's going to be um, taking that third spot in through the championship playoffs. Sheffield United have dismantled Bristol City 6-0 in aggregate. So they look very, very strong. So we'll see who will join them. But let's get into it. We're going to go alphabetically. Arsenal, the easiest um, club on this list because for the last year and a half, even longer, Arsenal have been crying out for a 9. And I think there's a few options you can go with. You can go with Victor Gyökeres. You could go with like Dreamland with Isak. You can go with Benjamin Sesko. I've gone slightly different. It's a less of a physical presence than Arsenal may want. Um, but I have watched him a few times and I think he's fantastic. And his name is Jonathan David. He's going to be out of contract in the summer. He fits the bill in terms of quality. I, I I'm just unsure about the physicality and what Arteta wants. Maybe Arteta wants slightly more hold up play, which might be harder because he's like 5'9", 5'10". Um, but whoever you say here, if you're not writing down a 9 for Arsenal, then clearly you have not been watching their season. They are going to be signing Zubimendi, it looks like, who rejected Liverpool last year, which seemed like it was a massive error, but obviously Liverpool rode that out. I think Zubimendi will be fairly successful for Arsenal, but the 9 is so necessary. Moving on to Villa. Villa. So a lot of these predictions, there's the asterisk of we don't know where they'll be finishing for Europe next year, but I have a sneaky feeling that Villa might sneak in to the Champions League places because Chelsea and Forest play each other on the last day, and neither of them seem to be as consistently producing results as Villa will. And Villa have United and Spurs for the last 2 games, so it feels like a guaranteed 6 points after this season. Obviously, nothing's set in stone, but assuming they get Champions League football, they'll need someone of that quality who will elevate what they currently have. Let's remember that Asensio and Rashford, their two of their biggest attacking outputs, are both loans. So I've gone with another attacker. I've gone with Ryan Cherky. He has a lot of quality. Seems like he's very temperamental, um, but I would say he would add so much consistency to Villa's game. I think he's very two-footed. I think that's a trait we've been seeing more and more recently with Dembele, Kvaratskhelia. Uh, the idea of this two-footed player is so important because if they can seamlessly go from left to right and like fool the defender and like have them split in two minds. I think it's so almost unbuyable. It's a quality that you can't fully teach because it's all about like that technique, and it's all about mirroring it on both sides. Moving on to Bournemouth. Bournemouth, I've gone with a keeper because Kepa is on loan and he's done a good job, but I'm hearing a lot of rumors of him leaving, so I'm assuming he's not staying. Slash, it's just more fun to choose a new keeper. I've gone with I always butcher his first name, but Kelleher from Liverpool. Fantastic keeper. People have consistently said that he's the one of the best number twos in the world, um, and I'm fully on board with that. It pains me to say it from a United's perspective, but he's been every time he's subbed in for Allison. For example, this season he could have it could have derailed their title bid, but there was never a sense that he was going to do anything but give you 80-90% of who the of Allison, who's I would argue the one of the best goalkeepers in the world right now. Moving on to Brentford. Brentford's a hard one to write about because they have such a unique team makeup, and it seems like I I don't know who the right player is to fit into their system. I know they've been having like Lewis Potter go into left back, who's a midfielder by trade, but played at left back. They signed Coyote at right back, so it seems they have decent defensive cover. So I'm gonna go with an attacker because it seems with it, Shada isn't fantastic. Mbuemo is fantastic. Vissa is fantastic. I have a feeling that one of them will leave. Most likely Mbuemo, who is wow, the most consistent FPL player in the last few years, especially from a budget perspective. I have gone with Liam Delap. Wissa operates really well as a nine, but I believe when Tony was there, he was a winger. Um, so I, I would like to think that he could operate on the left or the right as well. And Delap would have so many chances in that Brentford team. Next, we have Brighton. Brighton is also a hard one to write about because right now they don't have European football, but it's such a tight race between Brentford, Crystal Palace, Bournemouth, and Brighton. Um, but I've gone with someone that every time I've watched him over the past few months, it's been like almost cathartic to see an American play very well. I know I sound very American, but generally I prey on their downfall. I'm just not interested to see like the rhetoric of like Christian Pulisic, Captain America, the best player in the world. Like that's it's so unrealistic. And normally when an American player does well, I'm always like, are they doing that well? However, Malik Tillman at PSV, he seems so versatile every time I watch him. It seems that like he's able to cut it and he's able to play like a little centrally, but he's also able to operate on the wing really well. And he's popped up with a few goals in the PSV side that have been doing really well in this Champions League run. So I think he's a great shout for any Premier League club to be watching for him. However, he is playing Champions League right now, so you could definitely argue it's a step down. But such is the financial might of the Premier League that we can actually feasibly see a player like that coming to the Premier League, to a club that is very, very good in Brighton, but also there's a good 8, 9 teams that are currently ahead of them. So I think their biggest goal will be to try and break into that top 6, top 7, which they can do. And every time I've seen Brighton play under Fabian Hurtzler, they look like they believe the process. They look like they're lacking a few players and they lose steam, but there looks like there's belief. Um, Burnley. So Burnley's a tough one to write about because I think that's probably my catchphrase of the episode so far. But there's a lot to change because they're going to be looking to uplift their whole squad, and I don't think that this will be any sense of staying away from the challenge of the Premier League because I think there's a few clubs that they're kind of aiming to be a yo-yo team, like they know they're going to get relegated, but they're scraping 17th. Burnley did so well under Scott Parker. They're so defensively solid. I think he'll want to just add to that defense and make sure that the whole season, next season, they might not be the best team, but they will be tough to beat. And a former player of theirs, Kieran Trippier, is who I've gone for. I think Kieran Trippier is on the way out of Newcastle. He was the first signing of Eddie Howe and the Saudi reign, and he performed very, very well and very, very consistently for the club up to this season. So I think Newcastle fans have said, "Thank you, you got us to a trophy," but Avi's and showing them the door. And Burnley's the perfect place for him. It'd be a homecoming almost. I know he's from, I think, Barry, but I'm sure he would love to go back to Burnley and repay the fans' pay from all those years ago when he left the Spurs. Let's take a quick break and we'll get into more of these signings.
Here at the Global Sports Podcast Network, we spent a lot of time selecting our delivery platform, and Zencastr came out the clear winner. With 4K video recording from your phone and AI editing that automatically removes all those ums and ahs, it's super easy to start a podcast that sounds great and is delivered efficiently. If you're ready to tell your story, check out the link in the show description to learn more about Zencastr.
I am parched. I needed to get some water. So, let's move on to Chelsea. Chelsea. This was another tough one because Chelsea have all the like a lot of the parts. I would argue they need a 9, but so many clubs need a 9 now, so that I've gone differently. I was thinking Watkins, but he's 28, 29, and I think they're going for a youthful side, so I couldn't see them doing it. But when it comes to age, I think the one position, or maybe two, with CDM that age is a plus for is center back. And I know they have so many center backs. They just brought back Trevor Chalobah. A homecoming for Mark Gahey. Seeing him return to Chelsea, he's already in London, already into Crystal Palace. I'm sure that as much as the Newcastle offer last year was a great offer, I think that he'd want um, to stay in the city and stay with his family and keep the consistency. So I've gone with Mark Gahey. I think during the Euros last summer, we saw that in a quality team, he shines even more. He's very good in one-on-ones, quick on the turn, intelligent, um, holds the back line very well. So I think he'd be a great signing. Crystal Palace. So, Crystal Palace. The signing I've gone for is kind of a little tongue-in-cheek because it's more about the player themselves than it is about the club. I've gone with Tyler Dibling, who's Southampton's starlet 16-year-old. And Tyler has been very consistent, and the way that people talk about him makes like gives you suggestions that he's not like Harvey Elliott. He's closer to like a Salah or something, like to that level. Like that's the level they think he'll achieve. And I think with a player like that, you have to choose your next stepping stone very carefully. So I'd be looking at like a mid-table club that is on the up, but you'll get good game time. You might push to Europe in upcoming seasons, and I think Crystal Palace is the perfect team. I'm hoping they beat City in the FA Cup final. It'd be just the icing on the cake to this season to see City bottle their only chance of silverware. And I think Tyler Dibling would fit into that setup very well. I think he'd be utilized correctly rather than, let's say, a team that like needs him, like West Ham, where like they might just give him too many minutes and burn him out. But I think Crystal Palace he'd get solid minutes, play with the likes of Eze, Mateta, Sarr on his side, so that they would not play together, probably be competing. But he would play with top quality players and potentially push for Europe. For I've gone for Everton for Mavididi. I think Mavididi is a fantastic player. I was surprised to see him to go to Leicester. I thought he would be going to a Europe pushing side, but um, seeing him play Leicester, it felt like he was a lot of quality in the ball, and I think he could do a great job for Everton. I think off that left hand side, he'd just work well, like playing off with Mikolenko, feeding Beto in the box. I could see that being very successful. For Fulham, this was another tough one because they are a very solid squad. So I've gone through the lens of looking at the relegated teams, who could they pick up, and I've gone with a pretty popular option of Taylor Harwood Bellis. Again, very solid center back, very vocal, probably has a good career ahead of him. Already scored his first England goal in his debut. I think there's a lot to be said. Um, but Fulham are solid defensively, so he'd just be that great rotation option, um, especially if they make the push to Europe this season. Next, Leeds. Again, another top option. Um, I'm going to make this caveat that Sunderland do not go to through the playoffs for this player because I've gone with Joe Bellingham. I think there's a lot of talk about Job a few years ago saying, "Oh, he's gonna be nothing. It's just a Jude like replica, but far worse." But I think he's proven everyone wrong this season. I think he's been very consistent. I think only like 4 goals, 3 assists, or something like that. But consistent performer. You ask any Sunderland fan, and they'll tell you that they're so happy that they have um, Bellingham. Liverpool. I've gone with the most popular option aside from Jeremy Frimpong, Milos Kerkez. It's clear that they need cover at left back. I love Andy Robertson, but he just got his first assist of the Premier League season against Arsenal. He's if if Robertson isn't giving you attacking output consistently, you definitely need a left back, especially in Liverpool's system, that does that very consistently. Robertson is still a solid 7, 8 out of 10, and he has so much experience, and I think that's so valuable. But I just don't see the need for like Kostas Tsimikas and Robertson. I would just sell Tsimikas. He did well for the club, but he was always going to be a rotation player. And then with that money, put it into Kirkaz, and I'm sure that's why every single gossip channel is saying Kirkus to Liverpool. Manchester City. I've gone with the midfielder here. I think that's a crucial role that they need to fill, and they need someone who will be can operate in a six at times, but will most of the time be an eight. Nico Gonzalez has done well, but I think City just need options. Hurts to even say positives and things I would want for City to happen, but I've gone with a namesake in their team, Ederson. He plays. This is the Atlanta Brazilian center mid, and the the way this guy has been playing for Atlanta in the Champions League, I I don't know why there's not more talk about Atlanta, especially how they did during the league phase this season. I just so so much quality all over the pitch and such a cohesive team, and Edison links it together very well. I I'd see him as that perfect complement to Rodri in the way that like Kovacic can't do what Ederson is doing on a consistent basis. He can't. I shouldn't say he can't strike the ball. Though Kovacic has got a strike on him, but Ederson is just seems like he sees the game a little bit better than Kovacic. I mean, who knows? But he just looks like a solid 8 to 9 out of 10 every game that I've seen him. But I've only seen him in the Champions League and the Europa League final last year. Let's take our last break, and then we'll finish the rest of the teams shortly.
Your body is unique, and Global Sports Podcast Network has partnered with Bioniq, the world's most personalised supplements. Bioniq provide 100% tailor-made supplements designed to deliver precisely what your body needs at exactly the right levels to optimize your health. No guessing. So click the link in the show notes. Use the code GSPN2025 for 40% off your first month's subscription. Bioniq. Don't settle for off-the-shelf solutions made for just anybody. Get what's right for you right now.
Okay, so let's move my mic a little closer. I don't even want to talk about United signings. the the notion that I should just settle for one signing for this United team is ludicrous. Our squad is razor thin. It's every week there's a new injury. Lenny Yoro, who looks so good in the semifinals against Bilbao, out for the rest of the season. I've gone with the CDM. I think there's a lot of strikers you could say. There's a lot of cams. It looks like Cunha might be arriving, but I think in Ruben Amorim's system, the CDMs need to be almost arguably the strongest position because you need someone who can act as an 8 and a 6 at the same time because they need to push the play up. They need to be solid defensively. They need to sprint to the edge of the box, grab the odd shot or two. The player I've gone with is more of a sitting midfielder, Adam Wharton. He's been so fantastic for Crystal Palace. He looks like so calm, and one of the reasons I said Tyler Dibling should go to Crystal Palace is that they have players like Wharton there that just set the tempo. Since the start of the season, Crystal Palace have been one of the best sides in the league, and I don't think many people can really argue with that, especially based on if you're an Arsenal fan, you remember the games against Palace. If you're a West Ham fan, you remember the games against Palace. Like every team is gonna stick in their mind that Eze, Mateta, Sarr, and Wharton are just demolishing teams. And so I think Wharton's a big part of that, and I would love to see him in a United team because as much as we have a capacity for rooting players, I think there's such quality there that I would be um, distraught if I thought he would fall below his level of quality. Newcastle, I've gone with a center back. There's talk of Botman leaving. Denburn obviously plays left back. Who's the other one? Char. Um, Fantastic, but slightly aging out, if I'm not wrong. I've gone with Fikayo Tomori. Fikayo Tomori has been playing very well for Milan. They haven't played that well this season, but from what I hear, um, he's been doing decently still, and Milan fans still love him. Looks like they're not going to get Europe this season, so maybe he'll be pushing for a team in the Champions League, which will almost guaranteed to be Newcastle at this point. So I think he's been in really well. Nottingham Forest. This is another hard one because Forest will need a few additions because they have secured European football. It's just a matter of is it Europa League or not Conference League because they are already high enough to not worry about that. But it's either Europa League or Champions League. If it's Europa League, I think the perfect player, um, and this he might consider this a lateral move, but I would be surprised this player specifically turned this down. Mohamed Kudus. The reason he went to West Ham was that they were competing in Europe. Uh, they are no longer going to be competing in Europe the next season. So Mohamed Kudus could be the perfect player to complement that Hudson Odoi, that Elanga, that doesn't just have quality on the ball, but will continually like track back, will press very, very hard. I think Kudus seems like he's always a player that when I watch him, I take note of the defensive actions. I take note of how often he's playing for the badge and playing for the team. Spurs. Well, another classic case of they need a whole squad of reinforcements. I think the back line has been atrocious. I mean, they've been consistent injuries, but even when the injuries have not been there, and Romero and Van de Ven are back, and it just seems like they're a shadow of themselves, a caricature almost. Please don't beat us in the Europa League final and make us the full caricature of the season. But the player I've gone for is the FPL starlet that I mentioned earlier, Brian Mbeumo. He's lights out. He's such a quintessentially consistent footballer. It's always blinding to see Brentford play. And there's like if you look individually at the names, there's never I don't think there's been a massive quote unquote name at Brentford ever maybe. And yet they buy fantastically well. The transfer business is always great. No one had heard of Brian Mbeumo before Brentford signed him, and he's been so good. And Spurs could do with someone of that quality. Madison, Son, out injured. Solanke, I like Solanke. I think he's a very, very good player, but he needs people around him that are running, and Mbeumo will do that for you, and Mbeumo will play the ball in. West Ham. This another tough one because it's who's gonna go to West Ham, like what kind of caliber of player um, are they looking at? And I've gone with someone who's just versatile, especially can play off the left because a lot of the times this season when Bissaka's on the left, and don't get me wrong, he can do a job, and um, Sufal is a great right back, but I'd like to see Wan-Bissaka on the right side, and he's played so well this season. I think he deserves it. But I've gone with another versatile player, because I think they're similar to the relegated teams. I think they're going to get ransacked a little in the summer. Maybe they won't sell, but there's going to be a lot of offers to their players because they have European level players. So I'm trying to cover all my bases, and I've gone with Maximilian de Kuiper. Plays for Club Brugge. He's the only maybe not the only reason, but he pushed them to go far in this competition. They did fantastically well and made it to the knockouts and played well in the knockouts. And he was a big reason why. His constant runs up and down the channels was a sight to see. And I think there'll be a number of European clubs in for him soon. It's just a matter of time. And then last but not least, Wolves. Wolves, another hard one to predict. Obviously, they'll need a replacement for Matheus Cunha, but I have gone with our great friend Mikhail's, one of his favorite players, Jakub Kivior. Hopefully the pronunciation was okay there. Kivior is fantastic. I think he's a great center back and can play across the back line. I think he'd do a job in pretty much every Premier League team. But I've gone with the Wolves because I think he would get consistent game time, and I think that's probably something he's going to be lacking at Arsenal, given that they have so much defensive cover and Calafiori at left back. They have the solid Gabriel Saliba center back partnership, and I think Wolves might be that perfect place for him to put his stamp on and really get a run in at center back. He might want to stay at Arsenal, given that he's had a run since Gabriel's injury. But I think he'd do very, very well at Wolves. That is my list. It's a longer episode than I thought it was going to be. I thoroughly enjoyed the research on this, going through team by team. What is everyone lacking? Going through the relegated teams, seeing which players are gold mines, just waiting to be taken away for cheap. Yeah, please let me know if there's any suggestions, any ludicrous mentions I've put in this episode. Otherwise, this has been me, Eshan Weerasinghe, and thank you for listening to GSPN.
Every club, every day. The Global Sports Podcast Network.